All right, episode 9 of Winded City Countdown. Scott Sterner with Ben Russo and Matt Urich, ready to talk some sports, but in a new format today, which we're excited to talk about. One of the biggest things I've heard, and I think you guys have kind of heard the same, is it's too long. The podcast is too long. There's lots of good talk there, but the podcast is too long. Would
We
you
are
both?
we are so good that we just can't stop talking.
That's right. So, in an effort to make this a little bit easier of a listen, we're going to do 2 podcasts a week now. We're going to have one that releases on late Monday night, Tuesday morning, which is the list of things we're talking about with the week ahead. And then we're going to have a podcast that's Wednesday that is the traditional list that you've come to know and love every week. So we think this is a good way for us to, offer both things that everybody seems to like, but in a way that doesn't require you to have a podcast on your phone that's 75 minutes long. So a good opportunity, I think. Would you agree, gentlemen? Sure,
Yeah,
right?
I think.
Sure.
I
Why
think
not,
that's
guys?
it.
I'm on board.
Yeah, we love
I-
it. We love it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Just having to sit there and listen. And granted, you don't have to listen all the way through, but especially given the format we're going for with the lists, I mean, to have 75 minutes if you don't have that to put in all at one time, you don't want to come back in the middle of the list, have to rewind to remember who was already on the list and go back. So it makes sense to do it this way, and it allows us, again, still to have sports conversation, not just the list, the countdown. So,
Yep, I'm a bet on that. It gives everybody, I guess, the opportunity to sort of pick and choose now too. If you just want to listen to the list, you just want to listen to us talk specifically like current event sports. So we're gonna give this a go and see how you guys like it.
So we'll give this a try for a couple weeks, but the goal is Monday night, Tuesday morning, we release the things we're talking about this week podcast. Tuesday, sometime during the day, we'll have an article that we want to post from Ben or Matt, whoever's got one ready. Wednesday will be a top 10 list. And then Thursday, another article. And then we'll recap it all on Facebook for you on Friday so that if you wait until Friday to listen to us or read us, you'll have everything you want to know that we did this week all in one place. So it should be a good listen. So with all that being said, let's get to it. This week's things we're talking about list is 3 deep. 3 things we're going to talk about this week. And the first one happened earlier today on Monday, March 7th, and that is the retirement of Peyton Manning. I think there's only one man that should be allowed to talk about this. Not only, but the guy who was proclaiming today on Facebook or Twitter, one of the two, that he now has himself an official Peyton Manning throwback jersey. Ben Russo, take it away.
yeah, I got good old number 18 from the Colts. Had that one for a long time. Still fits too. Kind of impressed with that, but I guess it means I was fat when I was younger as well. So whatever. But either way, we did that countdown, so it's going to be kind of like beating a dead horse. So we'll try to avoid that. But we did that countdown earlier with the top 10 quarterbacks, and I think it explains it all. I mean, there's always going to be the case that Manning is the best of all time, isn't the best of all time, whatever side you want to be on. But the simple fact is he is in the discussion. I mean, the league's losing, arguably their best player that they've had the last 18 years. I mean, he's got almost every passing record you could think of. He's got the Super Bowls. And, just from a personal side, I mean, I started playing fantasy football when I was 13 years old, and I think Peyton Manning was on my team almost the entire time. There might have been a year or two where he wasn't, but he was a guy that I followed for a long time for my gambling, fantasy sports habits. But very odd for me to like him. Scott can attest to the fact I hated the University of Tennessee growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I hated that stupid orange color that they have. But he came in and he had that rookie season where he had like the 26 or 28 interceptions, whatever it was, and just got better every year up until last year, basically. I mean, at year 17, he was still getting better. Just this past year, I'm glad he's retiring because he was clearly a shell of himself this past year. It was disappointing to see, but he's my all-time favorite player. So, just a pleasure to watch the last 18 years, really. So,
So Matt, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to give you this question as a person that really follows the NFL, and you've written about it for a couple of years now. If the LA Rams come a calling on June 1st, is Peyton going? Is there a chance? Like, are you convinced that Peyton Manning is done in the NFL? If you had to put a percentage chance that he does not play next season, what would you say?
Uh, I honestly think I would put it at 100% that he does not play.
Wow.
I think he is done, and the reason why is you look at a guy like Peyton Manning, who has always been a proud guy, a guy who works very hard, who not only in the classroom, on the field, with his body, all that stuff. And Peyton, I don't think Peyton was stupid. He understood where he was this past year and how poorly he played and how bad he looked at times, and he doesn't have the arm strength anymore. Not that he ever really had the arm strength, but he doesn't. I mean, he was just throwing ducks out there. He was terrible pretty much all year long. So I think he finally understood. I think it took him a while to fully grasp where he was, how he was like falling as a quarterback. So I think he's done, and people can say what you will about Brett Favre and when Favre came back and stuff like that, and I don't think Manning ever wants that sort of reputation of being a guy that couldn't make up his mind. So I've always loved Manning. I'm with Ben. He's probably one of my favorite players of all time to ever watch, and I think it's perfect time for him to go, and I think he's done.
Ben, do you think the HGH allegations play anything into this at all, or do you think he's just done because he's done?
I mean, I think he's done because he's done. I mean, I think we saw that this year. He was awful. He missed time with injury, kind of forced his way back into the lineup, and he was still awful. So, call it what it is. I mean, the guy was playing the last 2 or 3 years without feelings in his fingertips, and he had the neck fusion surgery. Was it 2 neck fusion surgeries, or was it just the one? Whatever it was. I mean, the guy probably should have stopped playing years ago. Really, the HGH allegations are unfortunate. Whether they're true or not, I'm one of the guys. I'm on the side of I don't care what you take. These guys are animals, and whatever they have to take to play every Sunday and earn their paycheck. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, this goes for baseball, football, anything. Steroids and HGHs, I just brush off. I just assume everybody does it, really, at this point. So, if he did, it stinks. I won't say it one way or the other, but whatever. I don't think it ruins his legacy. I mean, he still has to make the throws. He still has to, perform on the field. It obviously was a tough year for him with all the stuff going on between bringing back up that incident at Tennessee, which clearly looks like it happened, no matter what he wants to say. But that's a topic for another day. I don't want to get into that one. But
a day where we're 100 feet away from it again.
Right. I think going back to like what Matt said, I do think he's 100% done. I don't think he's coming back at all. I mean, you look at what he was this year. What is he going to do going to LA? I mean, that team in LA, the Rams, they're not very good. They just cut like half their defense or lost half their defense. So they're not getting any better. So
yeah, I agree. It's sad to see him go. Really sad to see him go. It was an awesome career, but
I do think
nothing left there.
Yeah, I think something this brings up, and this will be a topic I think we should discuss at some point. And Matt, I know you've written an article on it before, but you got Manning retiring this year, Brady maybe another couple years. I mean, Rodgers is getting up there in age. I mean, you got a couple guys like Newton and Wilson down there, but and Luck obviously, but there's not like those 3 guys. I don't think I'm going to say are going to be on the same level as Brady and Manning, not yet at least. But
yeah, and I mean, you look at Drew Brees is getting older, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger is getting older.
Yeah,
I mean, the turnover at quarterback in the next like 5 or 6 years, it's going to be pretty crazy and
there's just not much coming up. I mean,
there really isn't, and that's. Like Ben was talking about, I've written something before, and it's a lot of it has to do with the evolution of the spread offense in college, and guys just aren't prepared anymore. All these guys that come in the league now are more project than anything else. So, I mean, Wilson sort of bucked that trend being a mid-round pick, but it's odd where the NFL's heading because offenses have become so potent but that's partially due to the fact that the quarterbacks have been so good for the last decade, 15 years that it's going to be weird. It's going to be interesting to see how that all evolves moving forward.
Yeah, when you look at the great quarterbacks that are in the league, you know, we're taking one of the greats out and we're bringing Brock Osweiler into the fraternity that is. So it'll be an interesting watch. All right, moving on to our next topic, we've got Lovie Smith. He's here. He's our coach. Well, not our coach, but the coach of the Fighting Illini. I see Matt over there. He's wearing himself a little ILL-INI shirt. So Matt, you're kind of down there towards Illini country. What are you hearing in your parents' basement?
The echoes of depression. Personally, I love the hire. I've always sort of been a casual Illinois fan in terms of both football and basketball, and I think this hire is 100% exactly what the University of Illinois needed. They've been so mediocre at best for the last forever, pretty much. I mean, when was the last time Illinois was a viable program, like year in, year out? And you know, they've had the couple Rose Bowl appearances and the Sugar Bowl appearance where they got absolutely destroyed. Mm-hmm. And so I think Lovie brings name recognition. I think he's a very good coach. I liked him when he was in Chicago, but I also understood why they got rid of him. They needed to. That's just what it was. I think Lovie's going to fit in really well in the college game because he's that player's coach, and guys love that in the NFL, but that doesn't always work. But I think these kids are going to respect him. The truth test is going to be, is he willing to put in the work as a recruiter? And that's going to be where it's going to get really tough. But he got a 6-year deal. I think he's probably going to see the life of that unless he's really, really bad. But I think it's a fantastic hire for U of I.
So my thoughts on Lovie primarily go to this. Illinois was not going to get any kind of a splashy college hire. And I think Illinois recognized like they needed a splashy hire. So the only other option was to go to the NFL. Well, you weren't going to get a Jim Harbaugh type to come from the NFL back to college. So where do you go? I mean, so Lovie, you know, he's got that connection to Chicago, to the state of Illinois. He is outside the box, but still splashy. Like it should just be a solid fit. Ben, do you agree with that? Disagree with that?
No, I agree completely. I mean, they had, if they weren't going to go Cubit and they were going to go with a coaching change, they couldn't do another one of those, you know, hey, let's find the guy who's been dominating the MAC. You know, no matter how much we all want Rod Carey to leave Northern Illinois, that's not the route you're going to go.
What a shame that they couldn't get him out of there.
You know, that's not how you're going to build a championship team with, you know, going and getting Rod Carey or whoever. Whatever other shithead they're going to try and grab from the MAC. I mean, I think, you know, the guy that I always liked was Bo Pelini. I thought, you know, maybe he's a guy who could go turn the program around, but a lot of people didn't really like him. And again, going back to what Matt said, I mean, people are going to question whether or not Lovie Smith can recruit. I mean, the guy, every player that ever played for him, minus a handful of guys, loved him as a coach, loved him as a human being. I mean, I couldn't picture a better guy to go into a living room of some 18-year-old kid's house and make their parents fall in love with him and say, hey, this is where I want to go.
Our quarterback.
I mean, the other thing you have to look at is, so he's got ties to Chicago, he's got ties to St. Louis, he's got ties to Florida, he's got ties to Texas. That's 2 of the top 3, maybe 2 of the top 4 states as far as recruiting goes.
And he does have a Super Bowl ring, right, with St. Louis?
He does, yes.
Yeah.
So that's another. I always think that's a good thing.
Right. You know you're going to wear those when he goes in the recruiting trips. Just another thing that I didn't even think of until I saw it earlier. A lot of Lovie's old players, like Derek Brooks, Mike Allstott, his kid, they all have kids who are now at that age where they're going to start going to college. I mean, Derek Brooks' kid is like some top flight recruit, I'm pretty sure. Like, if you don't think that could sway to his advantage, I mean.
Oh, yeah. And then look at the sort of guys that Lovie can use as examples. Like you said, Derek Brooks, Mike Allstott, Brian Urlacher, Charles Tillman, Julius Peppers. Like I mean, not to say that he's going to bring those guys to these kids' living rooms or anything like that, but
he might.
He could if it's a big enough recruit. And the thing is, like, when you have guys like that who could vouch for a guy like Lovie, I mean, if I'm a kid and Lovie's selling me on this in my living room, and like Ben said, the parents are going to fall in love with him because Lovie doesn't swear, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. Like, he is just seems like an all-around really good guy, and that's exactly what this program needs. I absolutely, again, I've said it 2 or 3 times, but I love the hire.
Yeah, and I think especially when you look around, college football, and you look at everything that Illinois has kind of gone through with, all the scandal and the stuff that's coming out. You needed not just a good coach,
stability.
Yeah, you needed a guy that's not, within 6 years, Lovie Smith is not going to tarnish your program. Like 3 years from now, I'm 99% certain that Lovie Smith is not going to be recruiting scandal involving.
Yeah,
it's not going to do that.
Because he's always been the guy that he keeps his guys in line. Well, for the most part, but I don't think there's going to be any sort of like outside things that are ever going to track him down. Is U of I going to be competing for a national championship? I don't see it. I doubt it, but you never know. And Lovie automatically makes them better.
I mean, in 3 or 4 years, I mean, it's not to say they can't. I mean, I think the biggest thing, 2 things. Number one, he needs to hire a good staff. He really does. Yes. I think that's
been his downfall in the NFL.
Yeah, there's rumors that he is going to be keeping the defensive coordinator because I guess he's a former assistant from the Bucs. But the offensive coordinator is going to be the big one. I heard Jeff Tedford was a possibility. I mean, that's a huge get if you can. I mean, that guy's, he was known as, the quarterback guru in college for years. I mean, I believe that was Aaron Rodgers' head coach when he was at Cal. I think he was the OC at Oregon for Joey Heisman. So it would be a huge get. I mean, you gotta get a good staff for him, and clearly recruiting is going to be a big thing. I think he needs help there. And the second thing is you need to temper your expectations for not only next year but the year after. Mm-hmm. I mean, next year he's not going to be playing with anybody he recruited at this point. He's playing with what's already there. So, I mean, 2, 3, 4 wins, 5 wins, probably a max for that team. Their schedule's even harder next year. I think they play all their big games are on the road, and they get Michigan State. So, I mean, the first time you're going to actually see any of Lovie's guys is 2 years from now. So, I mean...
And they sound... And the new AD sounds extremely committed to letting the process work, which I think is needed because... And to Ben's point, yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 2 years. It's not going to be like a Jim Harbaugh thing because Lovie isn't going to draw the way that Harbaugh does. But that's not to say he's not going to be able to bring in good classes because U of I has been terrible at recruiting since the moment Ron Zook left. Who, it's amazing that Ron Zook was able to do the things he did solely as a recruiter. He was a terrible head coach.
So that's really one of the things I would question as we end this topic, which is, do we even know what Illinois has in talent there for sure?
It's not good. Their recruiting class this year, I know specifically for this year, was...
it was in the hundreds?
Yeah, it was really bad.
I want to say it was really low.
But even with a bad recruiting class, you're getting a real football coach now. How much of a difference is that?
I mean,
because coaching at the college level is ridiculously important.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, I think it's, like I said, I think 4 or 5 wins are your peak, but I think they'll be more competitive, and they could be one of those situations where, I'm not saying they're going to, go to Michigan State and win or go to Ohio State and win, but maybe they beat Wisconsin or something like, what I mean? Like they pull off like a smaller upset. And it's just that's the kind of game I could see them maybe pulling out next year or something like that.
I think the comp down the road here for U of I is if they can become Wisconsin, they would feel real good, right? Like you kind of every 10 to 15 years you have yourself a nice little peak, and then in that downtime it's not exactly bad. Like Wisconsin,
it's not rock bottom,
right?
You're still going bowling,
right? Wisconsin in the 90s played in some Rose Bowls in the 2000, and then they the 2000s were down, and they've played in 3 Rose Bowls in this decade, which is great. And now they're kind of going down, but they're also, in those off years, they were still playing in January 1st Bowl. So I think that's where U of I should be shooting to go. And once you're there, then you say, okay, how do we become one of the big boys? And the answer is you luck into the fact that somebody wants to do it. All right, last topic. Today was the end of the tampering period, but not quite the beginning of NFL free agency, if I understand right.
It's the starting of the legal tampering, which because
so you can talk to people, but you can't offer a contract type of thing.
You could talk to
my understanding
but I don't believe you could talk to the player. It's weird.
My understanding is you can talk money, you just can't actually sign.
Yeah.
Okay. So either way, we had one signing, which I know Ben really just took to task, and for good reason. I'll let Ben talk about that, but it's here, gentlemen. The Super Bowl is now in the past, and we are full steam ahead for the 2016 season. So, Ben, this is your go-to. This is your time of year. So let's hear it. What do you got?
Yeah, the first signing that was official. It wasn't, nobody changed teams, but it was Dwayne Allen to the going back to the Indianapolis Colts. Dwayne Allen and Coby Fleener were free agents. But Dwayne Allen, I want to say it was 4 years, just under $30 million.
26, I thought was the number I saw, with $12 million this year, $17 million through year 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think it was 29.5 million.
Oh,
it's like just over $7 million a year. And
26 was bad. 26 would be bad.
This
and
is
you're telling me, no, there's $3 more million there.
There's 16 catches last year, 91 catches in his career. But I don't want to spend my whole time talking about Dwayne Allen. But last year I remember it being a lot busier the first day. I think things will pick up tomorrow. There's just been a lot of links. So far. I think we've officially the Bears. What I've seen 4 guys mentioned so far. It's been the guard. I think it's J.R. Sweezy from Seattle.
Yep.
Patrick Robinson, cornerback. I think he was in San Diego last year. And then the 2 guys I think everybody and their brother is expecting, which is Malik Jackson and Danny Trevathan from Denver. We've seen them linked to now. So that's the 4 guys that they've been linked to. I'm cool with 3 of the 4. I'm not a big J.R. Sweezy fan. That Seattle offensive line was pretty pitiful last year, last couple years really. But yeah, I think it's what we've expected. I think we'll see some big stuff tomorrow. I think you'll start getting, not necessarily the agreements, but the handshake agreements that there's this guy's going to go here and so on and so forth. So, but pretty slow time. It's pretty slow day. But this is, like you said, this is my favorite time. This is where the Bears can make a killing with all the money they have. So,
and it's a big moment. I think you will really get an understanding for what Ryan Pace sees with this roster, right? If they go out and they make a couple of nice big signings and even some lower level signings, I think you'll be able to look at this and go, they think they can maybe compete for a playoff spot this year. But you texted us today and you said, wait, is that Seattle guard it? Because if that's it, that would that's the flip side. That tells you they're going, nope, we're not even a little bit close. We're going to build through the draft, and that's what we're going to do. Matt, would you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I'm sort of torn. I'm not really sure where I think they're going to go right now. I think Danny Trevathan is almost a lock. I think it makes too much sense. Actually, I'm really hoping he doesn't anything comes out that he signs before Wednesday, because I wrote an article for a publication I work for about that, so I would hate to have to rewrite something. But I think Trevathan's a great fit. Makes the most sense for them. He fills a need in inside linebacker. He's going to be 25 years old at the end of this month, so fits well. I think that's going to be their big name guy. I think they're going to end up signing people that the casual NFL fan might not know, which is okay. They did a lot of that last year. Look at all these guys they signed a 1-year deal as Jarvis Jenkins, Mason Foster. Obviously it didn't work out. Tracy Porter, guys like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they went after an offensive lineman that they think could, a young guy. I know Ben doesn't really like Sweezy that much. I think Sweezy was more a product of a poor offensive line in general. But the Bears need a lot of help at right guard. So there's a lot of options out there for what they need. But I think they'll probably sign a big name guy like a Trevathan, maybe be in on somebody like Malik Jackson, and then probably a handful of lesser known guys.
It should be a fairly interesting week, for the Bears, for the NFL overall. So, um,
I will say the one thing that would benefit the Bears with Trevathan is, today we saw Kiko Alonso traded to Miami, and it's already been reported Laurinaitis is flying to Atlanta to meet with them, and he's a guy who can sign before Wednesday. So,
Yep.
he could potentially sign with Atlanta tomorrow, and if that's the case, those were the two teams that were linked to Trevathan. It seems likely that Brandon Marshall, the linebacker, is going to stay in Denver with that second-round tender. So, I mean, they may not have a choice but have to let Trevathan go. So, could be the Bears' turn to strike. I kind of agree with Matt. I think it seems something similar to like what they did last year, where they get that one big signing like Pernell McPhee last year, and then you go get a handful of guys on prove-it deals. A little more flexibility this year, so maybe they get two of the big name guys. I threw this out at Matt. With Eddie Goldman in the middle, if they can get Malik Jackson and then they go draft like Ashawn Robinson in the first round, I mean that's a defensive front that is going to be around for not only 6 or 7 years, but that's a lot of beef up front.
That's a scary front because all three can move around too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I like about Malik Jackson a lot because he's flexible enough to move down. He can play the nose tackle if you want to go real quick. And the fact that Vic Fangio likes to move guys around and he's not committed to strictly, a three-man front where we saw a couple times last year. Well, he's got two down defensive linemen and then you got five guys standing up or something like
Right.
that. So the flexibility, it could be. I mean, that's a way to improve a defensive line that was not very good last year by getting. I think Malik Jackson alone would help improve that line immensely. So it should be a pretty interesting and fun next couple of days for Bears fans just to see what direction they're going to go.
all right. Well, to recap, our three things that we're going to be talking about this week. Even though Manning retired today, the conversation on the booyahs and everywhere else is, what's his legacy and where does Peyton fall all time. Lovie Smith going to the University of Illinois, that's going to be talked about at length in Chicago, just because it's polarizing because some people have a genuine hatred for Lovie, which, say what you will, he's a decent football coach. You don't stick around the game as long as he does and not at least be a decent enough football coach. So people be talking about that. And then the free agency, that's a story that's just going to snowball throughout the week. And, I know that's 3-2-1, but I know I'm going to add a 1B because I know there's one thing that Ben Russo is going to be talking about all week, and that's how he's going to just continue to hate watch the Bulls.
They might actually win today.
Yeah, it's Milwaukee. So it doesn't really matter. But, that I think that's just going to be a standing 1A for Ben Russo is he's hate watching the Bulls because that's what the Bulls want us to do. They want us to hate watch them. And then even more local, the Hawks have two big division games this week. So we'll take a look at those and see how these new players keep working out for the Hawks. But the three big ones, Peyton, Lovie, free agency, there it is. 28 minutes right now. That's where we're at. Can you believe it?
Look at that. We made it under time. Yes.
So that's great. So if you were listening to this and you're confused as to why there's not a top 10 list to follow, that's because that list is now going to come out on Wednesday. And if you're listening to this Tuesday morning, look at our Facebook a little later for a piece by Ben Russo. Ben, are you having a piece up tomorrow? Are you ready with one?
No, I got to get one together. So it'll either be up Tuesday or Wednesday.
Any ideas?
No.
That's all right.
That's fine.
Ben's
And
creative.
I think later in the week I'm going to touch a little more on the Lovie Smith hiring down at U of I and what I think that means for the program.
So we got some good stuff coming this week. So remember, subscribe on iTunes. Hit that nice little green box that says subscribe. Rate us on iTunes. We haven't pushed that at all, but we got some ratings, and it's looking good. If you go to Chicago Sports and search Chicago Sports on iTunes, we're like one of the top 10 podcasts, so that's pretty awesome. So rate us. We're on Stitcher. You can rate us there as well, I'm pretty sure. You go to Podbean. You can follow and rate us there. Like our Facebook page. Tell your friends. Put it out there. It's all good stuff. We appreciate every single one of you that listens. So, for Ben Russo and Matt Yorick, I'm Scott Stern. Thank you for listening to Winded City Countdown. And be sure to download on Wednesday our top 10 list of the most memorable free agent signings in Chicago sports. Thanks for listening.